Hey crafty people! Welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Alright, it is time for another mystery craft, and if you're new to my channel, at the beginning of the year I put a bunch of craft supplies on little pieces of paper and stuck them in my Eeyore mug. And for mystery craft, I grab a piece out of the mug, and that's what we craft with. The list of all of the items that are in the mug is in the description box down below, with X's next to the mystery crafts we've already done this year. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab, I think I've got two in my hand. Nope, maybe just one. Embossing folders. All right, so that's what we are going to craft with today. All right, so we pulled embossing folder out of our mystery cup. And I want to do a project that doesn't involve actually embossing with an embossing folder. I was watching a video on Instagram by Elise Clashmon. I hope I pronounced her name right. I will leave a link down below. But she was doing a technique I haven't done in ages, and it was she used a wax pastel. I'm gonna use a white crayon to create a resist, and she used a stencil, but I thought, hey, I bet I can use an embossing folder to do the same thing. And we're gonna do, it's a resist technique, so I'm just realizing I should have peeled my crayon before I started this video. So give me a sec, I will take care of that and be right back. So we're gonna take a crayon and an embossing folder and paper, and we are gonna create a resist. So this is a Darice embossing folder I've had forever. Don't think it's available anymore. Sorry about that, but this is one of my favorites. What I've got some white-ish packing material. Grabbed a piece of cardstock to test this out on cardstock, and some brown packaging material. And I think for this one, we'll go with the white-ish packing material. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hold our paper on top, and we're gonna run our crayon along to pick up the image. I don't know how well it's showing up. I'll hold it up close to the camera once I'm done. And yes, this is going to chew up your crayon. All right, so what we've got now, you can see, is the white from the crayon on the paper. So I'm gonna set this aside, and let's grab another embossing folder. This one's Cuttlebug by Provo Craft, another one I've had forever. I have no idea what the name of this one is either. And let me do one on craft so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. So there you go, you get the impression again. And the thicker the wax, the better it's gonna end up working. So we're gonna do a couple more. Pulled out, this is Tim Holtz Sizzix one. It's one of the 3D embossing folders, so don't know how well this is gonna work. I figured let's give one a try and see. And this one's called Swirls, and I'll leave the number down below because I still have the packaging for this one because it's a newer acquisition. Let's try it with the cardstock and see what we get. Now with the cardstock, I really can't see because it's white on white how much is showing up right now. So I'm just gonna go to town. And I'll hold it up in a sec and see if I can see. I I don't know that this one's coming out all that great. I have a feeling it's not gonna work all that good. But let's try one using the same folder with the craft paper so that I can better see what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna trim this down a little bit and so we can see a little bit better, because yeah, using the cardstock on this one, probably not the best idea, since it's one I'm not sure how well it's gonna work to begin with. And I'm using the spot, this is the raised side as opposed to like the deboss side, because this would end up leaving, granted you could do it this way, where your resist is going to be around the image and what you'd end up inking is the image, whereas this one, the resist is the image, if that makes any sense. All right, let's see what happens. And it may just be that the lighter weight of this works better than the thicker weight of the cardstock for doing this technique. So yeah, you got some of it going on. So all right, let's set that one aside, and we're gonna do one more embossing folder that I pulled out. And this is another Tim Holtz Sizzix, one that I've had for a while, so I'm not entirely sure what the name of this one is. And what I probably should have done is grab some tape to tape down the paper while I was working. It would probably make life easier. You definitely want to be firm as you're pressing down with the crayon to make sure you get a good coating of crayon on our embossed spots. Oh, I think I put a rip through that with my nail, but that's all right. You know what? I have one more piece over here, and what I think I'm gonna do is grab this one and do the deboss side instead of the spot where the image is raised. Do it where the spots where the image is depressed, so that when we ink, we're gonna get the ink where the image is, because the rest will resist. So we're gonna see how that goes. I don't know how well this is gonna work, because I feel like I'm just covering the whole piece with, I don't think this one's gotten an open enough of image to work. All right, so we're gonna do one more, and I am gonna do the opposite side and see what we get using it for the resist. So I will admit, I had the idea to do this, thought I had a box of crayons, could not find it. So I ended up ordering from Amazon for like $5, a box of just white crayons, which means I need to do this technique a whole bunch more to justify having an entire box of white crayons. Definitely going to give it a try with some stencils too. All right, we're going to see how this one turns out, where we've done the opposite side. I'm going to clean up my little crayon scraps, and then we're going to get to inking. All right, so I've grabbed some ink, cleaned up, and we're going to get to inking our crayon-y paper. And I think I'm going to try first doing dragging. So what I'm gonna do is just drag the ink pad on my paper. And this is, I'm using Spun Sugar Distress ink. And then I want to get some more color on there. So let's do a little Kitsch Flamingo. Wet it. Mix it up. And kind of tap this in. Now you could use distress sprays for this, distress oxides, like whatever inks you got that you like to ink with. The only reason I'm not pulling out my sprays is because that means I got to pull out the splat box and it makes a bigger mess. And this is a little bit more controlled and easier to clean up because, yeah, I just don't feel like dealing with the mess of sprays right now. Now, I don't want to hit this with my heat tool because I'm not sure how much it's going to like, the crayon's going to like dealing with heat, because I don't want to melt any of my crayon. And I am getting a little bit of, I apparently still had some crayon residue, so I'm just going to grab a paper towel and wipe off any crayon bits that's getting on my ink pad. So I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry naturally, which probably is not gonna take all that long in here today because it is warm. We've been having our highs in the 90s lately, so yeah, it's summer in Florida already. All right, I'm gonna set that one aside, wipe that off, pull in our clocks and grab, let's start with some salvage patina. And I really love the color I get when I mix salvage patina with tea dye. So I'm gonna toss in some tea dye. Spritz. And mix it together. And being very delicate with these papers because they're not very thick, so they're not gonna stand up real well to a ton of water. So yeah, you can't really see much right now because the paper is going a little translucent with the wetness. Which makes me think I need to figure out some way of recreating that with the paper. And I'm gonna have a bit of a think of how to permanently turn the paper translucent like that. That may be a future video if I can figure something out. Got some ideas percolating in the brain. Now I feel like I should set this aside, let it dry, and we'll come back and see what our color is looking like. Let's grab our other clock one. Let's do some salvage patina. Tea dye. Let's toss in some Uncharted Mariner. And some Scorched Timber. I think I need to do another round of Distress Mystery Color Combo since I keep going back to like old standbys. Yeah, see, normally this would be where I hit it with my heat tool so I could see what color we've got and what's going on, and then come back and add more ink. But since I don't want to risk melting the wax, I'm gonna set that aside. All right, so I'm gonna grab Antique Linen, Victorian Velvet, and some Vintage Photo for the next one. I'm gonna set that aside to dry. Let's give the one we did on the white cardstock a try and see what we get. And I'm gonna use the same Victorian velvet, vintage photo, antique linen, so yeah, I'm really just trying to get ink all over the place on these pieces so that we can see the resist. That is actually working out better than I thought it was going to. Oh, I kind of like that. That actually came out pretty cool. Tempted to spritz it with a little water to get some movement on the paper. Kind of see what we get there. That actually turned out better than I thought it would, and yeah, that actually came out pretty darn cool. And you can see some of the texture from the matte showing up on here. I'm happy with that piece. All right, we're gonna let that one dry all the way. And we've got one more. And I figured for this last one, let's pull out some oxides and give them a go. Okay, so I've got Victorian velvet and antique linen in oxide, but I don't have vintage photo in oxide. I've got walnut stain, so we'll use just a little bit of walnut stain since it's darker. All right, I'm gonna let everything dry and then we'll be back to see how they look and maybe at least make one item with one of our pieces that we made. Okay, so these guys are dry and I think these two are good to go. They don't need anything else done to them, but I think these guys could use a little bit more ink, especially this one. It's got very little color to it. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna grab Uncharted Mariner because I think the one that needs a lot more ink needs darker colors added, that'll help. And I'm grabbing Scorched Timber as well. I'm just gonna put some on the mat and smoosh it around. I'm gonna spray the paper, see if I can get it to move a little bit better. And I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry. I'm gonna add some more ink to this one, again with Scorched Timber and Uncharted Mariner. Again, gonna spritz to get it to move. And I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry. And I pulled out Victorian velvet. I'm smushing on my mat. And okay, just gonna set that one aside to dry and add a little bit more to the last one. Yeah, this is the one I did the oxide on, and I think the ink works a little bit better. And we're gonna just get that wet and ink this guy up. And I'll come back once everything's all dry again. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so they are dry, and I really like how these came out. And I want to use them on something. So what we're gonna do is I went into my stash of coffee dyed papers, and I have a whole bunch of 2.5-inch wide strips. I must have been cutting down papers for one of the journals I've done that wasn't a full 8.5 by 5.5 wide. Because yeah, I have a whole bunch of 2.5-inch wide, 11-inch long strips. So we're gonna trim those down. I'm just gonna grab my little guillotine and do math in my head here for a second. And we're gonna chop off 2.5 inches. Yeah, I always have to think for a second when I'm using this because I don't know how you can see where the number is, and sorry about the glare, where the numbers are for the inches. It always takes me a second to remember the 2's going with this line, not that line. So I then have to do, you know, the figuring. So that's 2, 2.25, 2.5, 2 3/4, 3. So that's why if you saw me pausing, it took me a minute to pause. But otherwise, I like my little trimmer. It's great for doing little things like that because, you know, it's only a little over 4 inches by 4 inches. So not a go-to for trimming down a lot of big paper, but a great handy little tool for doing stuff like this. All right, so we're gonna do this one and this one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of our dyed embossed resist paper and I'm gonna tear it down. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna create belly bands is what I was thinking I was gonna do with these. And kind of go kind of collage-y on here with the pieces and maybe add a little bit of this one. Don't have a real firm plan in mind, just kind of a vague idea. I think that piece is too big. That for that one, I think. And then do some clocks on the other one. This one I want this clock to go on. Do that on there, and then let's do that like that. We stick that there. And then we need more stuff. So All right, so right now I'm just pulling out some labels, and these are my porch prints, and that's Love Junk Journals. And I'm just trying to tie everything together so that it doesn't look so like disjointed on there. All right, we're gonna doctor stuff up, but I want to grab stuff for this one out too. Now these are the Junk Journal Studio ones that I have been using a lot of the yellow for the bee journals, and I've also got the pink set. That is Leanna Scraps. All right, so let's start with this guy. And I am going to do a little bit of quick extra fussy cutting to trim off some of this over here. There are little like flecks of color splattered, because you can, I don't know, see little color splats in this area, which is why I originally like left it in. But I think with what we're doing now, I want to cut it off. I think I like that better. Now, I'm obviously going to pull out my antique linen and ink him up so that the white isn't so white. I also want to trim this down. I'm gonna grab bigger scissors because I'm trying to be straight-ish, and doing one cut with the big scissors will get me a straighter piece than if I try fiddling around with the smaller ones. So we'll do that and that. And I think I'm also going to trim a little off on this one. That way. And all right, let's start with inking him. Okay, so gonna give him a good inking so that the white isn't white anymore. Now for these two pieces, I think I want to go with Salvage Patina. And I'm gonna do Scorched Timber on my edges. Actually, I kind of crinkled this a little, and so I think I'm gonna do it a little bit more on purpose and kind of try and highlight those crinkles a little bit. There, there. Let's ink the edges of these pieces. And then I'm gonna grab Uncharted Mariner and ink the edges of my base piece. But first, what I wanna do is grab my We Are Memory Keepers. This is my Deco and Stub Punch. So I'm gonna stub punch the corners on this, just to add a little more interest. I'm gonna Uncharted Mariner, and I'm gonna go on pretty heavy. then I'm actually going to come around and do some scorched timber just along the very edge. All right, now let's grab, I'm going to use my art glitter glue and start gluing stuff down. These two pieces are going like so, and I want to do the label over here, and this guy like that. And then I had another label up there. This one I had going like that, I think. But now I'm thinking maybe I'll go like so. Let's figure out where our dog's gonna go. If I put that there, the dog can sit on that, and I can have this guy coming out over there, I think. Yeah, or do I want it there? Oh, I think I like it better there. All right, let's start gluing the rest of the stuff down. And I'm just trying to keep the stuff within the confines because this is going to be a belly band. And if I have delicate stuff sticking off the sides, it's likely to get damaged when putting things in and out of the belly band. All right, let's work on this one. And I think I want to do fancy corners on this as well. But this time I'm going to grab my Cloud and Scallop We Are Memory Keepers punch. And we're going to scallop our corners. And I'm going to Victorian Velvet the edges in Distress Oxide. I am also going to use Victorian Velvet on these two pieces. And this one I'm going to trim down. I'm going to use Vintage Photo for all of my edges. All right, let's get our placement figured out again because I don't remember where I had everything placed. I think that works, although I may inch this all up just a smidge more so the bottom piece isn't quite so far down. I think I like that better. All right, that's what we're gonna go with. All right, so there we go. We've got 2 belly bands done, and we've got a bunch of pieces left over that I can use on future pieces, and these 2 that are still intact. And I zoomed in to show you the thing on my thing and never zoomed back out, so I have a feeling this may end up being another one of those ones where half the stuff wasn't on film. Sorry about that. Boy, this is why I don't film during weekdays, but I didn't get this finished over the weekend because if you watched Monday's mask make video, you saw what went wrong there. Apparently I am still on the struggle bus. All right, so what we've got are 2 belly bands using pieces of our Crayon Emboss Resist pieces. Then we've got a bunch of leftover pieces from the ones we used and 2 we haven't used yet that are still intact and ready to be used on another project. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.